What says college football offseason more than lists? We've got one, actually two, that have us wondering. That's next.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good morning, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. It is Thursday, April 10th, and I'm Connor Happer from 1620 The Zone. Mitch Sherman from The Athletic is with me. As Mitch mentioned there in the cold open, that we have some lists. We are getting into list season. Don't worry. Soon enough. There's going to be awards watch lists and who has the hardest
kickoff
schedule.
Dates.
Oh my God, it's going to be great. We love summer in college football.
I got a question yesterday about a kickoff date and wondering if maybe the Nebraska at UCLA game could be a Friday night affair. It was the first I'd given one iota of thought to that, and my response was, I don't know. Doesn't seem like a place to play on Friday night at the Rose Bowl, but, it's the new world. Fox might want to do that. Seems like an attractive matchup, and I guess we'll find out in June.
Sounds like a podcast topic. Yep, May or June. We'll have some things to talk about, but we're starting to really hone in now. Now we generally have an idea of who is where in college football. Don't officially know all that yet. There's still a transfer portal window coming up, but we generally know who is where. There are some folks, Tom Fornelli of CBS and Andy Staples of On3, who are ranking quarterbacks going into the 2025 season. And there's a couple reasons why we bring this up. We'll explain them to you. Should we give you the list before we go any further?
Yeah, we can do that. I kind of drew it out here just to get a sense of how many Big Ten and SEC quarterbacks are in there. But I think most of these names people know. I didn't know all the names, I'll admit, and I didn't put the school. Can you name all the schools? I've got the quarterbacks written out.
Let me see. Okay, so Kate Klubnik is at Clemson. Drew Aller's at Penn State. Arch Manning's at Texas. Carson Beck's at Miami. Garrett Nussmeier's still at LSU, right?
Oh, yeah.
Sawyer Robinson is at Baylor. I think he's the quarterback of Baylor. Luke Altmaier is Illinois. Lenora Sellers at South Carolina. Devin Dampier is... That's got to be a group of five.
Well, it was, but he's now in the Big 12.
Oh. What school is that?
He's gone from New Mexico to Utah.
Utah. Okay. All right. Interesting. And then, they don't have Cam Rising for the first time in 40 years. And then DJ Lagway, who's going to come up later in our conversation, who is still at Florida. Andy had Lagway, Lenora Sellers, Kate Klubnik, same guys, and then added in John Mateer, who ended up at North Carolina.
Oh, no. Think South. It's SEC, formerly Big 12. He's at Oklahoma.
He was at Washington State, and then ended up at Oklahoma. Thank you. Drew Aller, Sam Levitt at Arizona State. Darian Mensah is he was at Tulane. He's now at Duke, I believe.
Yeah.
And then Carson Beck. So Fornelli on his list had 4 SEC quarterbacks and 2 from the Big Ten. Andy Staples on his list had 5 quarterbacks in the SEC and 1 quarterback from the Big Ten, which is
probably pencil in. You should probably pencil in at least 5 SEC teams in the final 8 of the college football playoff this year.
We'll see. I was reading another, speaking of stories and lists and stuff like that. I don't know, like the Big Ten has won the last couple national championships here.
I wasn't serious.
Yeah. Okay. There is, before we pencil in all of the SEC teams for everything and all the best players are in the SEC. I think there's going to be some guys in the Big Ten who have something to say about that. So let's focus in for a second on Lagway, who was a quarterback. Like, he split time at Florida last year, basically, and he was hurt a little bit as well, and there was kind of a lot going on at Florida. They had a really difficult schedule. True freshman, same age as Dylan Raiola. This is obviously why we're going to bring this up.
There we go. There's the name we needed to mention.
Yeah. He threw for about 2,000, a little under 2,000 yards, a little under 58% completion rate, 12 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Dylan Raiola, who you may know is the quarterback at Nebraska, also a true freshman, threw for 2,800 yards, 64% completion rate, 13 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. Now, there's no talk about Dylan Raiola going into this season, and that is why we bring nationally. There's no talk about Dylan Raiola going into the season. That's why we bring it up. Should there be? Are they sleeping on Dylan Raiola?
I'm not sure what it is. I think, first of all, Lagway was 6-1 as a starter and got Florida to 8-4, like resurrected the Gator season. And he was definitely like a hot item in the midway to latter stages of the season. And people looked at him. I think there is some of that SEC glitz around him, but he can make every throw, kind of like the guy in Lincoln. That's never been the knock on Dylan, like that he was short on talent or anything like that. Now, people are going to criticize Nebraska's, rightfully so, Nebraska's ability to close out games last year, the lack of clutch offensive play from the Huskers, all of the one-score losses. But as far as like the quarterback ability and like the measurables, like the physical gifts, I don't know that Dylan takes a backseat to a whole lot of guys on this list. And the reason that Lagway is up there, he's number one on Staples' list. He's also injured this spring, by the way, not throwing, has a shoulder injury. Fornelli, in putting him 10, said the same thing. The reason that he's there is because of the great physical gifts and the extremely high ceiling, which I would argue is a reason not to be sleeping on Dylan Raiola, because he can still make the 50-yard throw across the field. And I feel like some people nationally are a little bit over that. Like he had his moment when he was the number one player in the country. I think if he had done at Nebraska, if he had done at Georgia or Ohio State what he did at Nebraska, which is maybe not realistic, but it just if he had been at one of those schools last year, and I don't think he'd be missing from this list. So there is a little bit of a an SEC bias going on here, perhaps, and also just kind of the big schools that are in the spotlight. I say that definitely as we talk about Duke and Utah.
But these are guys. Those are guys that had like insane production at like lower level schools. So
there really aren't many of those mid-level power programs. It's basically all of the schools that are viewed as college football playoff contenders, with the exception of maybe those two.
Yeah, and that's
Illinois.
That's always a way to do it, I guess. I will play devil's advocate, I guess, a little bit on this. Like, I think there is absolutely reason to believe that Dylan Raiola is going to take a big jump in his sophomore year, right? We've put it together all off season. Most of it has to do with Dana Holgorsen, and just the way that the offense is going to be this year compared to it was, the apparatus that he was in last year. But I will say he wasn't he wasn't perfect. That's a high bar to hold at times. And how much of this is the offense and how much of this is the circumstances and how much of this is how much pressure or whatever. At times he wasn't even good last year, right? Like he went through stretches of the season.
Middle of the year during the losing streak in October and in November. Yeah.
I mean, we remember the conversation. He's turning down easy throws. He's timid. He's scared. He's taking bad sacks and stuff like that. So like they need to get that part out. With that being said, like if you're just looking at the hard stats going into a guy's sophomore year, I am a little bit surprised maybe not to see him get a like an honorable mention look or something like that on a list like this, considering how high profile of a recruit he was just a year ago.
if the Athletic was putting together this list, and which I'm sure will happen, and I was asked to contribute the section about Dylan Raiola, the write-up, the first place I would go is the marriage with Dana Holgorsen and how that can be transformational for Dylan. And we saw signs of it in the last 4 games of the year. So I think that's the big key with him going into year 2, in addition to everything that's been discussed. And we'll get to some kind of like review of the first half of spring, and you can kind of go back into the winter months a little bit with that too, just kind of what we've seen this offseason. We'll get to some of that. And the storylines around Dylan have been about his leadership and about his body composition and all of that. He seems to be answering those questions well. But the big thing for me, like, you don't get so focused on like what's happening in that minute. I think the main thing with Raiola this offseason is that he's got Holgorsen at his side for an extended period to go into the 2025 season.
No doubt. That is the number one thing. And we're not 100% sure how the marriage is going to work. Pretty unanimously, everybody thinks it's going to be a better position for the offense to be in 2025 than it was in 24. And that's where I'm at too. Like, there's no doubt about it. And Nebraska's changed. Like, I think one of the other things that was maybe holding back a little bit is just the way Nebraska approached football over the last couple of years, right? They wanted to really, really, really protect their defense. And I know they still will. And that's part of Matt Rule's MO. But like, if they strap it up a couple weeks into fall camp and then they go into the season, they're like, hang on, we might be able to score 30 points a game, then things change, right? So like, you go off of what you think you have, and right now, it looks like a pretty good picture.
There is one more thing I wanted to discuss about this quarterback conversation. Let's get to that after the break, and also discuss why yesterday was a big day for the Locked On Nebraska podcast. That's coming up.
But first, a word from our friends from the FanDuel Sportsbook, where the NBA playoffs are almost here. And FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you're going to get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. FanDuel makes it so easy, whether you are picking your favorite team as the NBA playoffs fire up now, or you're diving into player props, same game parlays, fantastic 3-pointers, steals, assists. FanDuel has so many ways for you to bet your favorite player props. And there's live betting. After the game tips off, say you're late getting to it, no sweat. They are you still have the ability to jump in on that action even after the game has begun. So don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com today and claim your $250 in bonus bets with FanDuel.
Okay, welcome back. Thursday episode of the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Mitch Sherman, Connor Happer with you, as we have been every day, or almost every day, for the last year. Yesterday, April 9th, sorry we missed it, was the 1-year anniversary of this show. So shout out to all of the everydayers, all of the podcast listeners, everybody who's tuning in to us on YouTube or listening as you drive to or from work, running errands, whatever it might be, Apple, Spotify, all the ways that you consume the Locked On Nebraska podcast and have for the past 365 days. Thank you. It's been a good run, and we look forward to everything that's to come, bigger and better in 2025.
Agreed. It's actually been shocking of how good of response, I guess, so we've got to this outside.
Everywhere we go. Hey, something that we start to get to discussions now that we've been doing this for a year and we're into like repeat episodes on the calendar. Something that you mentioned to me yesterday, away from the podcast, that had me thinking. I remember from last year, you talked about how on your radio show about how gas mower opening day is upon us. Mm-hmm. Is there actually an opening day, or is this just like a fictional thing? And it's like time to get your mower back going. I was looking around the internet this morning trying to find a date, and I couldn't get it.
No, there's no. I mean, it's obviously weather and grass dependent. Like John Bishop, who put that lovely graphic out yesterday. Him and I are like on the same schedule because we do baseball games together. So we're like at home the same amount of time and not at home. So Saturday,
You have to mow on Thursday nights and Mondays.
Yeah. Saturday seemed like a pretty good day. If the weather cooperates, and it looks like it will, to dust the old thing off and get out there. I had the lawn company come this week and lay something down. So yeah, I think it's starting to get green, starting to get some thickness to it. I'm excited.
We were talking about mowing, I think, a couple of weeks ago, and I got a note from your friend and mine, Michael Severe, and I believe he told me that he's never taken care of his yard, and I like he's never mowed, or gosh, I hope I'm not wrong with what he said, but yeah, I mowed yesterday for the second time.
Wow.
And it needed it. The first time it's just kind of like a cleanup phase, but yesterday it had grown quite a bit. So
Beautiful.
Felt good to be out there.
The water might need to put some water on it at some point too. Like this, it's getting into full swing.
Yeah, we haven't had a lot of rain. I haven't turned the sprinklers on yet.
The other thing that's going to happen this weekend is the Masters, which starts today.
Mm-hmm.
Dudes like us everywhere are going to be watching the Masters, and they're going to be saying, "Oh my God, I want my grass to be like that." And and the truth of the matter is, you can't. It's impossible. But you could try, and that's the dream. That's the goal every year.
Yeah, I saw a little of the par 3 tournament yesterday, and had some envious feelings. I was cringing every time the golfers took big chunks out of the tee boxes on those beautiful grounds in Augusta. All right. I wanted to mention one more thing about the quarterbacks. And we briefly told you that in Tom Fornelli of CBS, his list, there were 2 from the Big Ten, that being Drew Aller at Penn State and Luke Altmaier, who I think is deserving of a spot on this list. He's very good. And then Andy Staples had only Drew Aller on his list, ranked a bit lower than Fornelli did. So at the end of the year, and this is not necessarily a Dylan Raiola conversation, but at the end of the year, is the Big Ten going to have more there? I think part of the reason, I'll answer my own question and then see what you think. Part of the reason that you don't see Big Ten representation like the SEC here is that Ohio State and Michigan have brand new quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. So Julian Sayin is likely the guy for the Buckeyes, and Bryce Underwood, the true freshman at Michigan, is going to be the guy in Ann Arbor. It seems like this is like a Raiola thing a year later, but at Michigan. So I think it would take like one good performance in around Labor Day for either one of those guys to vault into the middle or near the top of this list.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Those guys go into, I mean, especially the quarterback at Ohio State. Like, the quarterback at Ohio State, whoever wins that job, like you said, it's expected to be saying like old friend Lincoln Kienholz, I think, is in the battle out there. I think
shout out South Dakota.
Yeah, he's from Sioux Falls, right? So, yeah, whoever wins that job immediately is like the 5th best Heisman guy in the country, which is deserved because you know that they're going to put up stats and
because you're thrown to Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah, it's not that complicated out there. I wonder who else could jump in that list on the Big Ten as I kind of look around. Obviously, we made our case for Raiola.
There's a former Big Ten quarterback up there in Leavitt, Sam Leavitt, the ASU returning college football playoff quarterback. But the rest of it's going to kind of have to be is Athan Kaliak-Manis back for another year? He's not on this list. Like, is he going to another Big Ten school?
I think he's done. I think he's probably
just thinking about Big Ten quarterbacks, who the Big Ten quarterbacks are. I don't know. I'm not sure who the Purdue quarterback is.
You got Dante Moore.
Oh yes.
There was some buzz.
He's at Oregon now.
Yeah. Yes, you get some. There was some buzz about Aiden Childs last year at Michigan State. Mayava
Purdue still got Hudson Card
at US. Do they really? Wow. Oh my goodness! It appears that Athan Kaliak-Manis is not out of eligibility. according to what I'm looking at right now. So that's something. Purdue does not still have Hudson Card. He played like 3 years at Texas and now is playing.
He's about to turn 24. I don't know if Hudson Card. Google's telling me that he's there, but he was a senior last year, so scratch that.
But I was going to go with Mr. Gronowski from South Dakota State, right? That's their guy.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a couple kind of wild cards out there. As you look ahead, could you name Northwestern's quarterback if you had like 100 chances to get Northwestern's quarterback's name? Who projected quarterback?
No, Ryan Helinski, he gone.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, also 24 years old. No, this is a homework for me coming out of Nebraska spring football. I need to educate myself on the quarterbacks around the Big Ten. Not a lot of household names once you get past Drew Aller, and I don't think Luke Altmaier is a household name, but again, he's very good at Illinois. And then like the star young guys, the expectation that Ohio State and Michigan are going to have very good quarterback play in 25, and of course Nebraska has Raiola, who I think is pretty well known.
You could make a case for Raiola in the Big Ten. Like if you were just isolating Big Ten quarterbacks, like you could make a case for Raiola to be like the second guy, given his experience, compared to the other guys that end up being on the list, right? Like if you take out the Ohio State thing, well, like the Ohio State quarterback's probably going to have better production at the end of the year. But like if you do like the returners, Aller is like the clear number one in the conference, and you could probably make a case for like probably 4 or 5 other guys at number 2, including Dylan Raiola, in my opinion.
Yeah, Preston Stone from SMU, who has had some success, transferred to Northwestern and could be the Wildcats QB as a 5th-year guy in 25. So don't know the name really, but we'll see. Yep. Something I wanted to get to also in this segment before we take a break. Today in Lincoln is practice number 9 of the spring. We will hear from Dana Holgorsen after the workout late morning. I'm sure something notable will come out of that. Anything you want to know from Dana? It's been a couple weeks since we talked to Nebraska's OC.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a curiosity about how the comfort level I think is going with those guys. Something that we were really harping on coming into the spring and just isn't really there anymore, and I wonder why that is the running backs, and we were
not catching fire. It's not. Yeah, not like nobody's fanning the flames anymore.
No, they seem to be just okay, and Mitch and I have accepted this now that they're just going to have what they have at running back, and that's the story.
I think so. I wonder if and this will be a question for Matt Rule on Saturday, if this 105 player roster thing is a little bit more flexible. Does that allow Nebraska to be more open to going into the portal in April and May, late April, in early May, and looking for players at positions where you have some questions? I mean, running back would still kind of be classified in that area. Maybe it allows Nebraska to say, all right, hey, maybe we should look at a running back. And I think a lot of that conversation was pending. It was on hold to enter the spring because they just had to see what was really there behind Emmett Johnson. And E.J. Barthel, Nebraska's running backs coach, is also scheduled to do interviews today on Tuesday around noon. So
Thursday.
It's Thursday. But I don't think E.J. is going to talk about the portal, and that's more, and I don't even think Rule's going to talk about that. Yeah. But you will get a sense for how Barthel feels about Quentin Ives, Mekhi Nelson, and then the freshman Connor Booth and Jamarian Parker. So I'm going to be tuned in for my ears will perk up when that subject comes up.
Yeah, they seem to be very okay with what they have right now. All right, when we return and round out the Thursday edition of the Locked On Nebraska podcast, do a little reset of the spring. Where are we at right now? What are the things that have emerged, positive and negative developments? We'll do that as we round out the pod next. All right, so a reset of the spring. What is, Mitch, the top storyline so far of spring practice? There's a bunch of different ways you can go with this.
There are. Boy, I don't want to be boring, and I don't want to go back to the boring storyline because it's just counterintuitive to think that something that we're describing as boring would be the top storyline. But the first thing that jumped into my head was the conversation about Matt Rule's expanded coaching staff and the freedom that it allows for the head coach. I wrote about this Wednesday. Today's Thursday. I wrote about this Wednesday on The Athletic. And maybe it's just like the recency of that article. That's what I'm thinking, that you have all kinds of new faces in new places, be it on the roster or on the staff, and how that impacts Matt Rule. And the staff is the stuff that impacts Rule more than anything, like how he goes about doing his job. So I think like Rule, the new Matt Rule, the new way of
Definitely
doing business for him, that's probably there for me. Maybe something else will come out in these next 2 weeks, but I don't think there's like a position on the team. I don't think that it's the quarterback spot is kind of ho hum this month in a good way. Nebraska's, I think, being very intentional about just keeping things quiet. You don't hear like much buzz about breakout players, and some of that I think goes back to what Rule said before the spring related to his thoughts on the spring game. Clearly, the entire reason that they canceled the spring game is not related to, it's not all about TV and the exposure and the transfer portal. But I do think that worry exists, and Nebraska's probably, not in a hurry to tell a lot of people how who's breaking out, who looks tremendous this spring, just because the portal is going to be open again next week.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things too that have sort of maybe eased my, things that we were watching kind of going into the spring, and now I'm kind of like, oh wow, I feel better about this. So like an emerging storyline. The first thing I go to, and maybe for me it like doubles as one of the biggest things, is the offensive line and how the two transfers have come in and really grabbed hold of those spots. I think in Pritchett and Rocco Spindler, and Spindler, it feels like they're getting everything they wanted and more out of him. Just not only a starter on the interior offensive line and a guy with a great pedigree, but also a leader now. I think that's huge. And remember how we were talking about this going into the spring, like, oh, they're beat up. Are they going to be able to actually accomplish anything? What's going to happen here? So you've locked those two spots down. And and maybe this is just what the coaches say because they don't want to sound any alarms, but from the sounds of it, like there's options, even without Teddy Prohaska and Gunnar Gatula and Turner Corcoran and all those guys. Like those guys are viewed as sort of, icing on the cake if you can get them back and get them healthy and get them rolling. So like for me, I feel settled about the offensive line, certainly more so than I was probably 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think I'll feel better when you hear reports that Gunnar Gatula and Henry Lutovsky, I think they're in a little bit different category than Prohaska and Corcoran. Prohaska and Corcoran, been through multiple injuries. They're older players in the program. I agree with you. Like it's like a bonus if you get important playing time from the two of them. But Lutovsky and Gatula, I think, need to be key cogs in the O line, even if those are your two guys. Well, they won't both be on the interior. Nebraska needs another tackle opposite of, and Lutovsky's an interior guy. I'm thinking about Gatula.
Well, so, I mean, maybe I could see a world where he's out there. So
Lutovsky, or I could maybe more easily see a world where Gatula is inside,
sure.
But that means that Corcoran or Prohaska is healthy and able to man a tackle spot. So there's still a lot to be determined about the offensive line, but it's definitely encouraging that Matt Rule says it's been a high point of the spring. And then he says observers who've come into practice look at the Nebraska offensive line and say that's the area where you've progressed as much as anywhere.
Let me ask you this right now, just at this point in the spring, and I'm sure we'll kind of recap this in a couple of weeks when spring practice ends, and then it'll be a discussion plenty going into the fall. Which side of the ball are you more concerned? Not to say that you're concerned about either one, but maybe a better way to ask it is, which side of the ball do you feel better about right now? That you're more sure that side is going to be good, offense, defense?
I found moments this spring where I've been more kind of, wow, that could really be something when it comes to the defense. And that's about looking at athletes, thinking about combinations, hearing players and coaches go into some little bit of detail on the way they want to package things defensively. I think both the offense and the defense are going to have maybe more change in 25 than they're willing to let on right now in April. Defensively, just doing stuff different on third down, having the ability to rush the passer with players that look like they have NFL kind of, multiple players who look like they have NFL kind of talent. That to me, I think has given me like more like moments of excitement. So I'd say, that stuff's existed on the offensive side too. We talked about the receivers earlier this week and after watching practice on Tuesday, but I've kind of gone that direction more with the defense. I think that if that group realizes its potential, you're looking again for a third consecutive year in Lincoln at a defense that leads the way. And that's just kind of, that's the Matt Rule. That's the Matt Rule playbook.
Gosh, that'll be interesting to really track because, it's going to be a different defense, right? As we've talked about plenty, they're going to be, I think, a little bit quicker and more explosive and athletic. Are they going to really hold people up the way they have along the defensive line over the last 2 years? My guess right now would be no. Not that I don't have a bunch of confidence in those guys, but I just think there's going to be a little bit more space to be more explosive. So maybe you're relying a little bit on turnovers on the defensive side of the ball. That'd be a good thing for Nebraska. I just think offensively, I just have a lot of confidence in Dana Holgorsen. Like his track record is so good. And you put Dylan Raiola in his hands, along with a couple of talented wide receivers and a halfway decent running game and an offensive line that you feel okay about. Like, I just like that picture. What does that mean? For the offense, like they had a longer way to go after last year, but I think there's a chance that the offense, not only is serviceable for Nebraska, like I think there's a chance that it's good. And if you pair that along with a defense who maybe isn't like great, but is good and puts the offense in the best positions. Like I just like that picture. I just think the math is a little bit different for them this year compared to the last two.
I just did a quick little check to see where Cincinnati ranked last year with its rushing game, and it wasn't bad. It could be an early test for Nebraska. I do think that's the biggest question going into the season for the defense is how are they going to hold up against the run, especially when you get to the Big Ten. But the opener, Cincinnati, fourth in the Big 12 in average yards per carry at just under 5.2, and Bearcats ran for 184 yards a game. So not bad. That'll be something that Nebraska has to really pay attention to. You have to respect the Cincy running game, most likely, just based on the philosophy and the way that they play football. So, I think to finish that, usually at this time of year, or even before this time of year, you have a really great sense of which side of the ball is going to lead the way, and that can't be said this year. And when I'm not pumping sunshine here, I don't know that's like a great thing for Nebraska. It could turn out to be a great thing for Nebraska if its offense and defense like rise together, but there is not one, It's not like, oh, Holgerson's they're gonna go as the offense goes, or they're gonna go as the defense goes. They're kind of on somewhat even footing, and that'll probably change. We'll probably be a couple weeks into the season and going, wow, this group is really leading the way, but I'm not sure which one that's going to be right now.
I agree. All right, so good status report on spring ball, as there's a couple practices left before the Husker games. All right, thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen today. For your second listen, NFL draft coverage coming up with the Locked On NFL Draft podcast. Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez have you covered. As your favorite collegiate players get ready for the next level, get the latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every day. Find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.